There is a middle school in Alabama that still believes in segregation, but they're not segregating based on race, they're segregating based on sex. What they've done is they've taken their female students and their male students, and they've separated them because they believe that the male students are more efficient in learning. And you know, those pesky female students, I mean, I guess we have to give them an education, but they're keeping the men down. That's the problem, or the boys down. The school that I'm talking about is Huffman Middle School, and the ACLU is actually asking the U.S. Department of Education to investigate this. But Huffman Middle School is basically remaining defiant on this issue, saying that, well, our pseudoscience proves that boys and girls learn differently. Therefore, we will separate them, even during their lunch breaks, by the way. It's not just during their classes. So according to Huffman, students are separated by sex for all classes, even during lunch.
Well, the women are probably cooking at that point, I would imagine.
Well, you know, for lunch, the little girls are actually told to go into the cafeteria.
It's job training.
To make sandwiches.
Obviously.
That's what they're supposed to, exactly. According to the complaint filed by the ACLU, instructions for teaching boys call for stressing heroic behavior that shows what it means to be a man. According to the ACLU, the school relied on a book that teaches that boys are better than girls in math because their bodies receive daily surges of testosterone, while girls have similar skills only a few days per month when they experience increased estrogen during the menstrual cycle. Let me just tell you something.
There's a good side to that.
Let me just tell you something. During those monthly increases in estrogen, I would argue that that's when you're least likely to learn, okay?
Are you not better at, like, algebra?
The only thing I'm better at is wanting chocolate and wanting to murder people around me.
So you're really giving a lot of support to this argument then, I would imagine.
This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of in my life.
No, so here's the thing. Look, it's not impossible that there are differences, that differences in instruction could help to, I don't know, to better suit men as opposed to women. Certainly there are skills that some of them are trained and some of them are you get them out of the environment, but there are some brain differences between men and women do differently in certain subjects to some extent. But this is not relying on on this science.
Men and women, okay, boys and girls definitely communicate differently. I think that's the biggest difference. The most fascinating thing that I learned when I was in college was we did a gender communication class, and we learned about the differences in communication, how men are more visual. They have to see it to learn it. So if you want to make an argument about that, that's one thing. But in this case, they're basically saying that boys are fundamentally better than girls. And once you bring that argument into this case, you lose all credibility. Yeah. If that's the case, why are more women getting admitted into colleges now?
And doing better there.
And doing better there than men. And that's not to say that women are better than men either, not by any means at all. But I think it's pretty negative to tell women or girls at an early age, yeah, you're not as smart, you're not as efficient in math, so don't even try. Yeah. That's the kind of shit that, look, I didn't get it from my teachers, but it was definitely what society tells you as you're growing up, which is part of the reason why I thought, I'm not gonna be good at science, I'm not gonna be good at math, so I didn't even attempt to excel at those things. I focused more on English and history, and I'm a little bitter about that, because I think that there should be more emphasis placed on both boys and girls focusing on science and math. Those are the fields that are most important right now, and instead you have women being pushed toward liberal arts.
Yeah. It works out for some of them. I will say from my own experience, especially in elementary school, I definitely was distracted by the women in the class. I think that most of the guys watching this can probably attest to that. There's always the one or two girls around you that you're interested in, so you're constantly looking at them. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it leads to worse educational outcomes. And what I think is interesting here is that they sprinkle like testosterone and estrogen in it to make it sound science-y, kind of. But we have actually had some research has been done in this. I found a meta-analysis called The Pseudoscience of Single-Sex Schooling, and they talk about what actually happens when you do this sort of program that they're doing. They say that boys who spend more time with other boys become increasingly aggressive. Similarly, girls who spend more time with other girls become more sex-typed. And what's interesting about that is that they're actually evaluating what it does, not just making up something and saying, let's do it. Now, maybe they have some sort of evaluation program built into this. I doubt it, but it's possible. But what's interesting, and this is something that I experienced both in undergrad and especially in graduate school, is I was exposed to some professors who do work in controversial areas like spanking, gay parenting, divorce. I took classes by people whose careers are based in that field.
What kind of spanking is it? Is it like
corporal punishment? No, like the effect of corporal punishment, not like sexual fetishism or anything like that.
Well, you said controversial. I was like, okay, what kind of controversy?
I mean, there are definitely arguments back and forth. And what's interesting is that They've done all this research and it sounds good, but when you actually talk to them about the fields, they sound so emotional about it, and so I know they have a vested interest in those areas. And some people on, say, the right, we'll just talk about them, don't like science, don't want to use science, and that makes the movement look bad. But some of them have learned that, hey, if you just get a couple of people to go and get PhDs, your whole movement can look so much more reasonable. That doesn't mean that it is more reasonable.
Right. By the way, another really interesting method that they use in this school, according to research conducted by the ACLU, boys there are seated shoulder to shoulder while girls are seated face to face, on the theory that girls are more cooperative while boys are more competitive and should not be forced to make eye contact. Look, I know this is anecdotal evidence, but I was the most competitive person in my class.
I could see that.
Like, I couldn't wait to like slit people's throats. Like, I was really competitive. So it's all, you know, this very old school, archaic way of thinking.
And look, what underlies this is sex. They're worried that the kids are going to have sex, so they want to put them away from each
right.
other.
And
That's what it is.
So they're using achievement or success as a way to make an excuse for that.
But they're very careful about it, because when they do actually put all the guys together, they make sure that they're not looking each other in the eye, because there might be some attraction that develops there.